And guys and girls, hello, welcome back. There is a saying, if you can't get a span on it, get an air gun on it. If you can't get an air gun on it, get a span on it. It's just the way we work, and generally that is my philosophy. Okay, so spanners for awkward places. And I do have an assortment of strange, well, not so strange, but spanners, and not millions of them, just enough to get by. Yeah. So once upon a time they used to put spanners with strange hieroglyphs on them, which a lot of us don't understand, but I do know that I have some old spanners which are Whitworth, yeah, WW, and that's a WW61. I hope you understand that was a joke. It's a bit of a spoiler alert here. Some guys still have Whitworth spanners in their toolboxes, and they are useful. All spanners are useful because they are spanners, aren't they? But Whitworth, don't use them anymore, do we? King Dick is an old boy. Some of you might remember it. If not, you probably think that it's sort of some sort of joke. Yes, it is. We used to make jokes about it in a time when we could make jokes without offending anybody. Right, so my toolbox, we'll talk about the combination spanners really today. First of all, I have a snap-on set 19 down to 10mm, okay, and they are chrome vanadium. I've had them years. They are extremely expensive now, especially if you get the flank drive ones, which in the UK that's £448 for a set like this. Shocking, isn't it? And if you add an extra spanner to it, like this 8mm one here, which I paid about £20 for, the price now is £35.16 including VAT, and that was today's prices. There is a cheaper alternative which is industrial finish. You don't get the chrome vanadium and the nickel copper coating on them. It is literally just machining black, and you have to take care of these. As you can see here, they wear off the black, and if you don't oil them, they get rusty. And you can see by the fractions of an inch there, yeah, that's old stuff. These spanners are well worn. The only shiny spanner you'll see is a 15mm, which needed to be replaced, but generally, yes, they are well used. Okay, so combination spanners are a little bit different from flat spanners because they have a kink to them, or an angle. Well, they have two angles actually, 15 degrees, which is the way that it's set up to make your life easier. These are engineered properly for you, okay? So you have one angle here, and then you have another angle. Let me just turn this round so I'll show you a little bit better. Okay, you have another angle here. So 15 degrees. Yeah, this is to get into awkward spaces and to get past objects. And it is instinctual for most guys and girls to know how to use a spanner, but sometimes if you get pointed out the right way, you can get around objects like here. Yeah, the loom's in the way. Can't get any other way of doing it other than putting a spanner on that, which is M16. Yep, and even with a brake chamber near a tyre. Okay, this is actually awkward. You can see I've got some space here. I'm using a slugging spanner, okay, which we will talk about eventually. But it's really awkward because I'm hitting the tyre most of the time. But yeah, slugging spanner is there for a purpose, is to slug things off, yeah. And it's a go-to for me. There are areas where you cannot get an air gun into, or it's very, very tight, or you have to get a UJ on it, which doesn't work. So you can see here how it works. Yeah, just a quick slug. This is what they used before impact tools anyway. Okay, so old Boney here, yeah, he's just realised that the gun is too long. I used a little stubby one, mate, yeah. Anyway, yeah, the downside again, straight handle means, you can see here, it would hit a bolt. So, yeah, this is a bit brutal actually because these spanners weren't designed to be slugged, but you can get away with it sometimes. But also you can see the angle of how that 15 degrees gets you away from obstructions and obstacles, can't you? There's another little trick. Instead of using a copper hammer, non-damaging, okay, to slug a spanner, which I wouldn't advise unless you really had to, or you used an old spanner. Yeah, you can use this trick here, which is the two spanner trick, the extensions trick, and it always works, doesn't it? Yeah, so you can either use it for undoing or for tightening up. Now generally I use open enders really minimally, so that it's only on pipe connections. or pipe connections, or even pipe connections. Yeah, open-ended, so you can get round the union. And there's also, again, pipe unions. If you have been in the trade any length of time, you'd have realised now you can also use an open-ended spanner to open a bottle of beer. But yeah, generally open-ended spanners is where you cannot get all the way around with a ring spanner. Ring spanner is always the best. And I do have specialist spanners. I have like 22mm, which I will use for brake chambers, for instance, for taking bungs off and doing brake pipe unions up. And then there's these ones here which are right up against the chassis and you cannot get a flare wrench around it, yeah? But when it comes to undoing nuts, especially when they're tight, the open enders will not go on successfully. They will slip off, so you always use a ring spanner. 12-pointed, yep, obviously. And yeah, this is always the way I tend to go. I'm just now setting my habits, the way I do things. The open ender is good for either whacking with a soft hammer, as you can see here, yeah, rawhide hammer, or even using to push with your hand. And there's no damage on this hammer because I use a non-damaging sacrificial hammer. But the whole idea here, and I'm grateful for this on a combination spanner, is the larger head on the other end, which acts as a little bit of a buffer for the hand. You'll probably understand a bit more when you have spanners that are quite thin. Now, chunky spanners are actually nicer, and it has been said the more money you spend on a spanner, the chunkier it will be, but it's not actually true. A snap-on spanner here compared to a laser tool spanner, they're roughly the same. I've got a similar feel to them, although the length might be a little bit different. You can see there's not much difference in it, okay? Which means that you buy what you need for what you want. If you don't know what you want, you just get a cheap combination set and then work out from there, okay? Laser tools are just as good as snap-on in the short term. And they are a little bit thinner on the head for doing pipe fittings, but this is a pierce to resistance, which is my uber thin spanners, and I'll show you those later because they are pipe spanners. And this one is uber thick, which is a Mac Tools one, which is very comfortable to use because it's got the chunk about it, which doesn't make your hands tired if you have to use them a lot. As you can see here, also chunky Mac Tools. Yep, so spanners, don't you just love them? I could be wrong actually when I said 15 degrees on the angle of the spanner. That might actually be 30 degrees. I think you get 30-60 angles, don't you? Not sure. You can tell me in the comments below which one it is. But yeah, look, here we go again. 210 maximum Newton meters on a brake chamber, nuts, M16. Meanwhile, outside in the yard, -2, about 9 o'clock at night. We've just sent our friend here, who only seems to come out at night to do some acrobatics, climb up on the wash ramp and just put the pipes back on the chambers on this trailer, yeah. I've got to call him Boney because I looked at him and I thought that's the only name I could think I could give him. Yeah, you know how it is when some people earn nicknames straight away. It's usually because of their physical features. Anyway, I tend not to prejudge people on how they perform until they've been with me for a little while, because you know they're all good sometimes and then they start to degrade. Other times they're crap and then suddenly they start to shine when they've got used to things. But the one thing I don't like, and I'm sure you don't like it either, you have guys that spend a lot of time on their mobile phones when they shouldn't do. Naughty, and this one does it as well. Yeah, the fascination's there, the addiction's there. Although he goes out and does work that he's told to do, and when he's finished he will then go back on his mobile phone, which also means taking selfies at strange times of the day, or should I say of the night. It's pretty easy to pick things up as well. Chimp is actually very enthusiastic, this one not so much, but when he's worked something out he actually starts to then get excited about the fact he's worked it out and he can do it, yeah. He's not been a truck mechanic, but he will be shortly. What impressed me, and I'm pretty sure that you would be impressed as well, if you were lending your tools out to somebody who'd come into the workshop for a tryout, even though he's come to help me do my toolbox, he's actually cleaned it, polished it with WD-40, which I nearly fell over in surprise because Chimp just copies what you do. Yeah, so he just chucked the spanners in there. Whereas this guy, quite different, very tidy, very organised, but he's also got the use of a vernier caliper, non-digital. Yeah, now that would scare the shit out of some people because they don't even know how to use a digital vernier, which is a no-brainer. This one, yeah, you do actually have to think. So he's had an engineering background and in measurement as well, and this is something that he showed me while he was checking my spanners out, and I wondered what the hell he was doing first of all, because nobody measures their spanners, do they? But this one was, he was looking for how badly worn they were and the quality of what they were. But there was a bit of a revelation here. So generally, combination spanners, open-ended spanners, they're not that good for holding fasteners, nuts or bolt heads. They will eventually slip. And you know this, you use them, you do know that it'd be better to use a socket or a ring spanner, yeah? Now, Mac Tools one here, I never noticed this before until he pointed it out, okay? There's some notches and some flutes in the open end here, which is like the snap-on flank drive plus, which helps you from rounding the corners off nuts or to give you that extra bit of grip. So as a snap-on actually say, flank drive registered, yeah, plus on the open end features a series of flutes and notches that grip a fastener away from its corners, which yeah, that's a selling point for those spanners, and it's something that people pay extra money for. And I never knew these existed on these ratchet spanners that I bought from Mac. So is it a bonus? Yeah, maybe. Well, once you've seen it and you know it and you're looking for second-hand spanners or you're buying new, look for this if you're an open-ended type of guy. Right, so I'm just going to get the spectacles on because I'm getting old now and I can't see properly, which is damn true. And look who comes around the corner. Harry, the apprentice, yeah. And what does Harry want to do? Well, he wants to see what I'm doing. Here you go, Harry. Read this. Can you read this? Harry's eyesight isn't actually that good. You see how he's pulled that in there? He can't read it, but he doesn't actually know how to read a vernier caliper gauge, even if he tried my glasses, which are just joke glasses, yeah. So anyway, everybody can learn something from everybody else, and I learnt this from Boney just by realising after he'd measuring those spanners. I thought, well, actually, I could do that with these old BS and Whitworth spanners and mark them as metric, and that's exactly what I've done because I've used these for years without really knowing what the sizes are. And you'll have to forgive me, although we do use these for hydraulic pipe fittings. I don't really understand imperial because I was brought up in a metric society. Right, so anyway, across the flats, this is an interesting one because it usually would be where you measure maybe a bolt that you don't know with a socket, okay, so you get a positive side ID, okay, so that's 46mm bolt head, yeah, so that's actually a 30mm or M30 bolt. Across the flats is generally what metric and imperial sockets and spanners are measured as. So you where the gap is on the spanner, that is the across the flat, so the dimension you get is across the flat. So when you measure a nut that you don't know, yeah, you then get the size of the spanner you need. It's as easy as that, isn't it? Or the socket or whatever. So put the old boy's glasses on again and let's have another look. Okay, what size have I got here? Yeah, I got the old boy stuff, haven't I? And there we go, just write that on there. Yeah, I've done all these spanners now. That'll take about 10 minutes before that paint marker wears off. And Boney, thanks mate, because you've actually done a good service on my spanners and you inspected all of them, checked for cracks, which is a good idea actually. You find the occasional spanner will crack, or it will be bent in the wrong way, or it's worn out. Mine are not actually, and I did spend a lot of money on spanners at one time, and they've served well. So there we go, guys. I think we'll leave it at that today about spanners. There's a lot of information you can find out, and I can share with you, but not in a 10-minute video. So Boney's done his job, what I've asked him to, so he's coming back into the workshop. But could you imagine actually meeting this on a foggy night in a lorry yard? Yeah, scare the nuts off you, wouldn't it?